Hi Anshuman, are you able to hear me? Hi Anshuman, am I audible? A very good morning to all of you. I'll be starting with the seminar on Introduction to Full Stack JavaScript. I'll wait a couple of more minutes. I can see people coming. Any more? You want to ask? Actually, some people have already joined on the webinar that I shared. Most of them are from, I think, Bhubaneswar, I think. Because it's showing that already three people have joined. Something hangout. Yeah, Google Hangout. Yeah, okay. What we are at present. माइंडसाइड भी चल रहा है एंड MFSN 705 भी चल रहा है 705 का ज़्यादा वो है already saved for minutes. I think I'll start because some people are on the webinar as well. It's already 10 minutes now. मैं start कर ही देता हूँ, already बहुत देर हो गया। Good morning, my name is Rajesh. I'll be giving a seminar on introduction to full stack JavaScript. Full stack, it relates to a web application. Like we have the traditional full stacks, that is LAMP, NAMP, and all using PHP, as well as you can use other technologies as ASP.NET and Java servlets. So first of all, about myself, I'm working as a quality analyst with Mindfire under the team for web application testing. Before that, I was working as a quality analyst for Infosys, and I worked in a project related to database testing for an insurance company. As a hobby, I like doing web application development and also learning, reading, and implementing newer technologies. And one of those technologies that I will be discussing in this seminar is Node.js. You can contact me via Facebook, LinkedIn, my blog, email. This presentation will be uploaded on SlideShare. You can use these links to contact me. My blog is also listed. This blog I have only created using Node.js, the whole platform. You can say it is kind of a WordPress replica. Agenda for the seminar. First, I'll introduce you to what is JavaScript. Second, I'll let you know why I chose JavaScript for web application development. Then I will share the components in a full stack JavaScript. And also from development point of view, I will share the workflow management tools. And finally, I'll show a little demo snippet of creating a small app using all the technologies I discussed over here. Introduction to JavaScript. First of all, JavaScript is a dynamic programming language. That is, at the time of interpretation, it will assume some things on the code. It won't compile, it will just run. Secondly, it is most commonly used in the browsers. Actually, it was developed not for browser usage, but for server-side usage under the name of Mocha. And when it was officially released with Netscape Navigator, it was called LiveScript. Finally, after some iterations, they changed it to JavaScript. It is most commonly used for client-side scripting and DOM manipulation. It is related to C, the syntax is related to C, and it copies many of the naming conventions from Java, but otherwise it is not at all related to Java. Just the name has Java, but it is not related to Java. Lastly, it can also be used outside of the browser. As I said, it was not intentionally developed for client usage. It can be used outside of browser, and many virtual machines and platforms were developed, but finally a stable build using Node.js, which actually runs on Google's JavaScript engine, led to the popularity of using JavaScript at server side. Why I chose JavaScript? When I started my web application development as a hobby, I started with Ruby on Rails. I also had a very small part in Python and Django, but I stuck with Ruby on Rails. I learned most of the fundamentals of web application development, including the architectural patterns like MVC, model view controller pattern, MVW, model view whatever, MV star, model view, anything you want to add. I had to learn a lot of client-side libraries like jQuery, many other JavaScript for uploading, DOM manipulation, interactivity. At the end of the day, I had to learn two languages, two different languages. One is JavaScript, since I was not from an application development background. I had to learn JavaScript and the libraries using JavaScript, as well as I had to learn server-side languages, like for example Ruby, the scripting language. Because of that, they had different syntax, they had different semantics, and because of that, it was a total chaos in my head using both of these languages separately. So the idea behind a unified language on both sides. First of all, this is nothing new. It has been done lots and lots of times before, implementing a same language on the client as well as server. But why this is different is that the idea is that it gives you a homogeneous programming experience. You just need to learn one scripting language for usage on the client side as well as the server side. Second, it helps you in reusing of components and resources. Now, why this is important is that if I create anything on the server side using JavaScript, I can totally reuse it on the client side as well. Whereas it was not possible for other scripting languages. Even if I wanted to reuse the components, I had to embed them in my application code over the client, exposing my development scripts and all. Now, last, this is just a small reference to a lot of the things. One language to rule them all. Simple reason. Now, why the popularity of JavaScript is coming is that It is because of Node.js. Now Node.js was created long time back by Ryan, and it helps you put JavaScript on server side by giving you an environment, an event-based environment that runs on Google's V8 engine. And lastly, JavaScript is the internet. JavaScript was created a long time back, and it has had many shots at itself by other competitors. For example, VBScript was created by Microsoft. Now VBScript is not used anymore, and it is being replaced by TypeScript. Now TypeScript, again developed by Microsoft, it finally compiles back to JavaScript. Also Flash, and another user case is Flash. Flash was created for user interactivity by Adobe, and due to HTML5 and the mobile market, it has gone. And many people say that JavaScript as a language, as a modern language, it is very complicated and it has a lot of problems like curly braces and callbacks and all. But another newer flavor of JavaScript is CoffeeScript, which actually compiles to JavaScript. Now this is a high-level overview of how a full-stack JavaScript looks like. Okay, we have the client. The client has browsers like Chrome, Explorer, and Microsoft Mozilla Firefox. We have the client frameworks, JavaScript frameworks. Example is Ember.js, AngularJS, Backbone.js. Now it communicates with Express.js. Express.js is a middleware for handling your server routes, application routes, and other middleware things. Then Node.js. Node.js is the core server. It is what actually handles the HTTP calls and all. And finally, as a web application has a database as well, so you can use any database. For an example, I have put MongoDB here, but you can also use CouchDB. Now, the flow of the application works in such a way that one, the user interacts. The user interacts using client side, and it gives a request to Express.js. Now, HTTP requests are then sent to Node.js. Node.js communicates with the database, and then the database responds back with response. For example, JSON or whatever response the database is giving. Node.js passes the response and then finally sends back in a JSON to Express.js, which finally updates the application page. Updates and DOM manipulations are handled by the front-end network frameworks. Any questions, Leon?
I assume that the Express.js is client side.
No, it's a server side. Everything beyond this is server side.
The HTTP request is sent from client side.
Yeah.
So Express.js is sent.
No, Express.js receives the request and then it passes on to Node.js, where the server handles much of the stuff. It is a middleware, for example, middleware for logging your routes, requests, parsing your data. Now the server component, Node.js, it is a server-side platform. It's a platform, not server-side JavaScript. It's a whole platform where you can execute your JavaScript. The core fundamentals behind Node.js is non-blocking I/O and asynchronous events. I'll let you know what non-blocking is. Non-blocking is that whenever you give a request to a function or an operation, that operation or function returns back without blocking your thread. You can say that it does a parallel execution. Asynchronous also means same, but you can say that when I ask something, when I ask a function to execute something, it will execute on the backend and come back to me when it has finally executed. This can be done using callbacks, and JavaScript very easily helps you in using callbacks. As I said earlier, Node.js uses Google's V8 JavaScript engine. Now this is a small snippet of creating just an HTTP server. Now this is only Node.js. HTTP is built in Node.js. It is not using Express.js. So, as you can say, requiring. Now this is the module import. I'm requiring the module HTTP within my script, and then I'm using a function create server to create. Now what I pass it a function. I pass it a function which takes a request and a response. Now request will come from the client side and response will be the server response. So whenever anything a request comes, my HTTP server will respond back with a header I'm just printing hello world. What it basically does is that when I open the server and send a request, it is just going to print hello world on my client, that is browser. And finally, I'm listening to port 8000. I'll show you an example of what I exactly mean by asynchronous and non-blocking I/O. Yeah. Very basic example. Are you able to see? Uh, my simple question to you is that when you open a file, when you ask a program to open a file, and what data is within that file. Let's suppose it's a text file. I'm asking what data is within a file. So how will be the normal procedure? I'll open the file, I'll read the contents, I'll send the contents back and store it in a variable, and I'll print the variable. Now, what happens is that this is synchronous processing. Okay. The last statement, this is after file read. Now, if I go on, it will read the file from example.txt, it will write the text on the command line, and then it will print this after file read. Now, why this is bad is that, let's suppose I am doing a operation, that's a DB query, that takes a lot of time to execute. My server will hang up because it is still processing the DB, it is waiting for the DB query to succeed. So it won't execute anything after that. Now that is synchronous processing. This is synchronous processing. I'll show you. I'll execute this. I executed that command. That command was snip1.js. The command was snip1.js. I executed it. I read from a file. It is reading it. Read 2 paragraphs, and after that you can see here. After file read. Okay. It took time. It took time. And this was nothing. It does not take any computation power. It was just printing after file read. Now let's suppose it happens. Similar stuff happens on my server side. Okay, my server will block the whole processing just to execute this. Let's suppose it was just a simple response back. This was an update. This was a DB update that client had triggered. But DB update, the client should not, the server should not block because of that. The other example using asynchronous programming is this. So I'm reading file. I'm reading the same file. But what I'm doing is, at the end, I'm giving it a callback. Callback is something that, okay dude, you are executing this, you're going to read this. Now when you're done with reading it, then print it out. I want you to print out when you're done with reading the file. And after that, I'm doing this. I'm installed a log after file read. So what happens is asynchronous that this will go in another thread. This one will continue in this thread. This will be printed first. And next, this will be printed. You can see after file read was printed and then the data was printed. So this is an example of asynchronous programming. The server components. Server components or the middleware are part of a pipeline. It is a whole stack of middleware that executes and does something to the client request. The pipeline, it processes the request and finally, as an output, it generates a response. It only addresses part of the request, a middleware component, not the whole pipeline. A component only addresses a part of the request and generates only a part of the response. And it then delegates it to the next piece in the pipeline. You can consider it as a Lego setup. One block plus one block plus one block plus one block. So each block is handling something and then generating a response which is put together and sent back to the client. So what Express.js does is that it is an application framework that runs Node.js and puts in pieces of pipeline. It can be very helpful in building SPS, single page applications, multi-page applications, as well as hybrid applications. It is very simple and very minimalistic framework.
This operation of the middleware is also seamless.
No, see, when you're running Node.js, it has the power of asynchronous programming. But at the end of the day, your programmer or the developer, he has the power of actually using asynchronous programming. The example that I showed, both were running on Node. But Node.js also provides for synchronous programming as well. So it is up to you. So the preferred way using Node.js is asynchronous callbacks. So you can create in both. It is up to you. But non-blocking programming, it is just a design pattern where you use all callbacks, for example. Then I have the database. Now, which database? See, it provides you any list. NoSQL database, MySQL, MS SQL. It does not restrict Node.js. I'm talking Node.js does not restrict on any database that you use. But for a full stack JavaScript framework, you need to have a database that uses JavaScript as its query language. For example, we have MongoDB and CouchDB. MongoDB is a document-oriented NoSQL. It stores in JSON format, which is JSON they created into binary sort. It was written in C++ and developed by Tension. Now it is renamed into MongoDB.in. CouchDB is again a NoSQL database. It stores data in JSON, not JSON. It was written in Erlang and it is an open source project under Apache. I personally use MongoDB in my development. This is an example in C. DB. Now DB is my database. Yeah. So this is a basic find query like you have in SQL. Since NoSQL does not follow any language, it uses pure JavaScript. So db.people.find. DB is my database which I am connected to. People is collections. All the data is stored in collections. And .find is a query. So I am finding it, and this is a query parameter. I want documents which have name equal to artist. So this is the format or the syntax, you can say db.collection name .find and then query parameter. This is collections. Collection name, like you have tables. If I talk in SQL, yeah. So in SQL you have tables. In this we have collections. Are you guys familiar with NoSQL databases? So a basic difference between NoSQL and SQL databases is that there is the biggest difference is that there is no schema in NoSQL databases. For example, if I create a table in SQL RDBMS, so I have a table which has, let's say, unique constraint over some attributes or column fields. Now, if I put data into that which does not have those, then it will throw an error. Similarly, if I want to add a data that has more attributes than actually the table has, it will again throw an error. What NoSQL does is that it is schemaless. It does not restrict you from adding. Yes, it has options of adding schema-like properties, but if I have a collection that takes name, it will insert this document name Vagish. If I insert another document that has name Vagish, age 24, something like that, it will still allow it to insert. It won't restrict you from having any of these constraints. Next, we have the client-side frameworks. There are many client-side frameworks nowadays which are being used with other technologies as well. AngularJS, the most popular front-end framework, maintained and developed by Google and community. It is based on the MVC design paradigm, that is model view controller. It just requires JavaScript, HTML, and CSS on the client side. Next, we have Backbone.js. It was made by Jeremy Ashkenazi. The same guy, he created CopyScript and also underscore.js. These are also very good libraries to use on the client side as well as the server side. It is not a complete framework. It does not provide you with a lot of help work. It is just a set of functions created into a library that helps you make other components. So it is based on MVP design paradigm. MVP is model view presenter. You can combine Backbone.js with Marionette.js to simplify construction of large-scale single-page applications. The third, this is currently my favorite framework, Ember.js. It was made by Yehuda Katz, and he is a core contributor of jQuery, Ruby on Rails, Proud Core. Also co-founder is Tom Dale and other community contributors. It is based on the MVC design paradigm, attribute controller, and it uses a templating library. Now, templating engines, are you guys familiar with templating engines? Okay. What templating engines is that it helps you extract some value from the code and put it directly on the template. So you provide a skeleton and you provide, let's say, variables. Let's say you have a skeleton and you have a variable, let's say name. Now in pure HTML, if that goes on the client side, name will be written as name. But what templating engine does is that it extrapolates the values. It changes name into the actual value from the server. So it uses handlebars.js, which is again created by Yehuda Katz. And to answer the question, if you can see, which is the best, which is the best front-end network for you? It actually depends on your need. I have given a link over there. It is a very simple site, todomvc.com, and it provides you all the differences between so many frameworks. There are many more frameworks than these. I'm just talking about the top 3 frameworks over there. We also have knockout.js. But finally, the workflow management tool part. Why do we need a workflow management? From a developer point of view, why do we need workflow management? It helps you get started. It helps you get started with your project. It helps you maintain dependencies. Now, we have so many things to use right now in this particular full stack that sometimes something will go obsolete or something will be deprecated in lieu of something else. It helps you enforce best practices. You can have tools set up that checks your code. You can have linting. It helps you prepare your tools. The tools that finally when you send it to production or deploy it to production, it will help manage all your development code and create a production package. It helps you fight regressions. Whenever things change, you want to do regression testing. You want to do testing a lot. So these tools, these management tools will help you find that. And it also helps in the release process. Because of these tools, the production library or production final application, just a click of a button and you will get that. So I'll start one by one. How do you get started? Now you can take seed projects. Seed projects are basic projects, just templates and skeletons created. You have mean seeds. Now mean is another stack. Mean actually is a full stack. It is MongoDB, Express.js, AngularJS, and Node.js. So this is the whole mean.io. You can visit the site. We have Ember seeds as well. Ember CLI, command line interface, another thing in the making by the core contributors. Then we have generators. Now, generators are nothing, these are programs which when you run, they will create the skeletons, create the part of your application for your basic parts. You can also have Git repositories. You can own the repositories from personal or community repositories. An example I can show you is that this is one repository. This is one seed project that I use for my development purpose. It uses Node and Ember. It's a starter kit, and you can just git clone it, npm install, power install, and it will just give you a skeleton of the basic application. Maintain your dependencies. Second part. We have a lot of different libraries to work from front end to back end to server and everything we want to have. So front end package manager is Bower. Now Bower was created by Twitter, same as Twitter Bootstrap. It helps you manage your front end libraries like jQuery and Moment.js and so many other front end libraries, handlebars, embers. Then we have backend package manager, that is npm. Node package manager. npm is very useful in installing, running, developing everything it can help you with. This way you can create files. Now Bower, it manages your dependencies by creating a file that is bowerrc, and npm does through package.json. Any questions?
See, when you have JavaScript dependencies, all you have to do is include the JavaScript file. Why do you require these?
What?
See, when you have JavaScript dependencies, all you have to do is include those JS files.
Yeah.
Okay. So why do you require these?
Why I require these managers is that, let's say I have a version. I have my JavaScript library version as let's say 1. Okay. Now everything is running fine on that. I do not have any manager. I just copied it, pasted it. So next time when I download the library, when I create the application again, I did not check my version. I created, let's say I downloaded version 1.2. Now between 1.0 and 1.2, there was some middleware, some functions that were deprecated. They removed that. Now I am expecting my application to run as it does. But because of those missing functions, my application can break down. So I need managers. I need managers that store. I'll show you an example of how it stores. So it will store the version, actual version that you have downloaded. And when I deploy it, I will keep a track. I'm going to keep track of the version that I have and which I need. So next time, if I send that package or JSON to you, you just need to run npm install. It will automatically download the libraries which my application is using. Otherwise, what happens is that, let's say I have an application.
Configure some file.
Yeah.
I will specify the version of the JavaScript.
Yeah.
So it will create a deployable file.
Exactly. So have you worked on Rails? A parallel thing is that in Rails we have gem files. So it tracks the gem dependency, the gem file. I'll show an example. On the right, I have package.json. Okay, this any Node.js application, when I do npm init, that is initialize, it creates these simple stuff which helps in application authorization, maintenance. So it is basically telling me what is the name, what is the version, is it a private or a public repository, who is the author. So I can create a JSON file and one can do that. Now these are dependencies. Now you can see these are dependencies. I'm using Express, Morgan, Cookie, Parser, Debug, Mongo. Next to that you can see these are the versions. Now if I send it across to you, you just run it and you exactly get the same library that I was using and not what the latest library is. And these are dev dependencies. These are only deployed on the developer side. When I run it in a production environment, these will not be used.
Those are deployment.
Yeah, these are all workflow management tools. So deployment tools, you can say.
This is a kind of manifest file.
Yeah, you can say it's a manifest file.
This is in JSON file.
Yeah, this is JSON. So for backend, for the server side, we have npm, and for the front end libraries, we have Power. Power is created by Twitter. Now, next in the workflow management part, we have how to build your code and automate tasks. Now, if anyone has worked in creating an application, any stuff, there are many tasks that you need to do again and again. For example, if I have an application running on the server, now I change some server-side code. Now I'll shut down my server, I'll restart it, I'll go to the client, and I'll check what happens on the client side. Now, these tools help in automating these tasks and building your code again. So, examples are Grunt and Gulp. Both of them are open source. Grunt is an older in the community, so it has a wider community support. Many questions are there on Stack Overflow. Gulp is newer one, but it is faster and simple to use as compared to Grunt. Both are equally powerful. It actually depends on what you want to use. Next, we have
automatically deploy.
You can. I'll show a grunt file to you. This is a grunt file. Okay, this is a grunt file, and this is from my seed project. It has tasks. Grunt, what it does is that it helps you break down your workflow into tasks. So it has tasks. JS hint. I'm just linting my code to understand are there any compilation errors for JavaScript. Will there be missing commas or curly brackets or something like that? Then I have watch. Now watch, what it does is that it is a grunt task that will watch my folder and it will watch for any changes made to my code. Whenever there is a change in my code, it will compile again and execute and deploy on the client for my testing purpose. Next, I have Express. Express is again a task for relaunching Express server. This is a if you see grunt file.
Send them manually. You are saying that was part of the on server side, but like you're changing a file or you're changing a something, that basically we are starting the server.
Exactly.
So those things basically.
Yeah, automation. This is all automation.
Here basically you are changing the file
I'm using Grunt. So Grunt has its own config file, which is grunt file, gruntfile.js. So I'm just importing it. It also runs on node.js. So it will see all the tasks which I have registered, and it will execute them whenever anything happens to trigger that task.
You deploy this on the server side?
This is a development tool. I won't deploy it. I have tasks. Okay, let's start. This is created in Node.js. Node.js is a platform. It's not actually only for HTTP. It's a platform for executing a JavaScript.
You specify the locations where the deployment should be done.
Yeah. So one of the tasks can be deployment. If I go at the bottom of my grunt file, you're able to see. Now these are my tasks. I'm asking grunt to load my tasks. These are my tasks 1, 2, 3, 4. JSInt, was, install, server, injector. Now this is a register task. This I'll run by default. Whenever I run from command line grunt, these all tasks will be invoked. Similarly, I can create a deployment task. Grunt.register task. Let's say distribution, DIST. Then I'll again put some other individual tasks from my file, and then they will execute, and then they will compile my code. They will minimize my JavaScript libraries and everything, and finally put it in a folder. Now I'll take that folder and put it in production. Next we have testing. JavaScript and packages they help in all type of testing. We have TDD, test-driven development. We have BDD, behavior-driven design or development. For TDD, we have Mocha. Mocha is again a Node.js package that helps you write, test, and execute unit tests. You can say. Behavior is Jasmine. It is basically a user acceptance testing. You can say acceptance testing. Then you have Karma. These are all Node.js packages. This is Karma. What it does is that it reads your tests from these both libraries and executes them and shows you on Google Chrome or Firefox, anything in a HTML format. There are many other libraries, assertion libraries. It all depends on your personal preferences. Then we have browser tools. Now, debugging on the client side, that is the most difficult actual part. So you have Chrome development tools, because client side like frameworks, you can only debug them on the client. You can use Firefox, you can use Chrome development plugins. For Ember.js, there is a particular Ember plugin for Firefox as well as Chrome. And finally, how do you write codes? If you are familiar with IDEs or you work with IDEs, we have plugins, Node.js has plugins for Eclipse, Node Eclipse and Nide. You also have JetBrains plugins. And if you are simple using text editors, you can use Sublime Text, Vim, Brackets, and Atom. Atom is created by GitHub, Brackets is created by Adobe. Any questions till now?
You have JSON as the only format for data exchange?
No. You can send files, you can send text files, everything you want you can do. I will show two examples. This is the most basic example you can create an application with. Okay, it is using the whole stack. As I said, in an application you are just importing module dependencies, like you do in any other thing. Are you able to follow? So these are module dependencies. I am importing my module dependencies in my package. Okay. See, not everything is given by default by Node.js. For other packages, that, like I said, package manager is npm. I simply run a few commands. Let's say I want to install MongoDB. I want to install MongoDB package, and if I put save after my command, it will automatically save the dependency in my package.json. I do not need to manually do that. It will go to the npm registry over the web. It will ask for the package name MongoDB. It will download the package, compile the package, execute the package, and finally put it into my directory. Now, another important thing to note is that it will put it by default in the folder that you give. I don't know which one. Yeah, I did it here. MongoDB.
Again, this is a JavaScript chapter.
Node underscore modules.
There is
MongoDB. Yeah. Everything that I install via npm is
yes.
JavaScript as well as Node.js.
What other databases can you support?
Any database you want, people have created drivers. Yeah, you can do
You have
SQL
a
Server.
corresponding base.
Exactly. Simple way of finding out is that searching it on npm. Here you can search package. If you want to do SQL, it helps you. It lists all the packages that you can do, and you can click on any package you want. You have SQL drivers, you have MySQL, MS SQL, anything that you want to do. There's a MySQL driver. Node.js driver MySQL. So you can read information over there. People, it is a community driven project, whole Node.js. So people write drivers, the core community write drivers.
MongoDB that is from they put that save. So what happens like we have to specify that MongoDB
See, that only imports your module, MongoDB module. Okay. Now, if I, for example, you can see here, Mongoose. This is Mongoose. Okay. Mongoose is an ODM, Object Data Modular Modulation driver for MongoDB. What it does is that it takes the basic commands and it puts them within a wrapper program or a wrapper function so that you can easily put. Because if you want to execute core, just the basic MongoDB queries, you have to write a lot of code. What it does is that it simplifies them. So mongoose.connect. Now this is the command. Even if I use MongoDB, I am going to use mongoclient.connect. What it does is that it connects to this. I have to give it this. Now, since I'm running MongoDB on my local and you run MongoDB as a server, so it is connecting here. So I show you on the background. I have it opened up. So this is my MongoDB server, and it's listening and it's listing all the connections that it has currently opened. Any query I do over here, it will show me here. So this is the server. Yeah. My application is MongoDB. So, for example, exactly. So you can replace it with anything you want. If you are using MongoDB as a service, you can just put the URL over there. This is basically nothing but a URL of where your server is running.
I'm talking about the save.
Okay. What save does is that it will put it here in my dependencies. It will put here in my package.json dependencies and also node modules. It will install the module over there. So these are all modules that you need to have.
What happens like in case we don't use save?
If you don't use save, it will put into node modules, but it will not put here. Save command is only for putting it here. I can manually write anything. There is no problem in writing anything over here. But what it does is that instead of doing two stuff, I'm just doing one stuff. I'm just putting it here. So this is the basic application that I can create, and it is using full stack. So it is using Express, as you can see on top. Then it is using, I'm creating an app using Express function. I'm requiring Mongoose for MongoDB. I'm setting configuration for my basic application over there. I'm telling it that my views, all my views that will be given to the client side is in the folder views. Then I'm telling it what is my engine. As I said, a templating engine. My templating engine is Jade. By default, Express comes with Jade. You can also use embedded JS engine or any other. And if you don't want to use a templating engine, you can directly send HTML files. So in the full stack, since you want the client framework to do all this stuff, you will just send all your client-side libraries like Ember or Angular with a index.html file. And just you, what it does is that I'll create an API. I'll create an RESTful API server using Node.js, and the client code will call all these routes that I'll create. Now, this is the middleware. As I said earlier, these two are an example. I've commented these two out. So, Morgan, I'm asking it to use a developer logger. It will log all the requests that the application is getting. And then I'm telling you, by default, server, if you're creating a server, you have a problem of what exactly to expose on the net, right? You only want your CSS and HTML or probably some public directories to export. What Express helps you that by default everything is private. If a person wants to get into the directory where the application is, he cannot. So I need to tell it where my static files are, where my, let's say, images are there. So it is in my public folder. This folder, anyone from the public can directly access. Now, after that, since middleware part is done, now routing. I'll tell it what routes this application listens to. So I'm saying by default, your default path, when a request comes in that path, you can say app.get. You do it using a callback, and whenever a request comes, you respond with nothing but render a page, render an index page. When I do render an index page, I'm telling it to you, title is high. Okay. What it does is, as I said, templating. It will extrapolate in that view the value of title to high. So if I show you the view, can you see this line which I have highlighted? Title equal to title, and I send it title high. So it will change everything to high. And finally, I'm just launching the server. I'm telling it you have to listen to port 3000, and when you're done starting the server, you just print this anonymous function which says that server is up and listening to 3000. Now, can you see these two lines? This is the anonymous function that I told when you're up and launching the server. After that, we just print this. So it just printed that, and again it printed that it is connected to the database test. Mongo is connected to that, and I gave an anonymous function to that. So if I go and show you, it will say that it has received 5. It opens by default 5 connections per call. So if I go and listen to port 3000, you can see the title of the page. The title of the page is high. It has been changed when I send the route. And this is the index page. Now it was written in Jade templating engine, which changes everything to HTML. So this is the most basic thing that you can do.
Response to get is
ये तो क्रोम है. This is Chrome. अच्छा ये. This is Sublime text. Okay. So my index page, this was the Jade index page. It will use this and compile it and send it in HTML format. The next example I can show you is this is using the whole. My seed project is using the whole workflow management. It is using Grunt, it is using Power, it is using NPM, everything. It is using Ember.js, and it also I have broken down my application into app, that is the client side, and server, that is the server side. All my server side, be it routes, config, models, views, are here. This is my index.html. Now I'm not using any templating engine because I'm using a client side framework. So I do not need to send anything from server. I'm just sending my data, everything in JSON. So my ember.js will extract the JSON and put it over here. I'm again using an injector. I'm compiling all my handlebar templates and putting it over here from my grunt task, that is injector task. So if you see it here, I'm asking it to put all the files and inject it over there. Similarly, HBS templates, all the injector files and put it over there. This is my front end Ember.js route. The basic route is that I'm asking it to call API.all. I created a Node.js API and I am sending JSON. What it is doing is that it is asking a call API.all, and when it receives a response, it updates the page.
The response that you get from this server is plain text or
JSON. It is a JSON
you
response.
send HTTP request to get in return JSON.
See, when I launch my server, what it does is that it will send index.html as well as it will send, you can say, client-side libraries, that is ember.js, handlebars.js. So these and jQuery.js. So these all three things will go on the client side. Now anything after that, what Ember does is that there is no actual reload of page. It is a single page application builder. There is no reload of page. Everything is via API calls, via simple JSON calls. The request that I get, I can tell it. If I can do it even .ajax, I can say that this is the type that I am expected. But when I am telling it get JSON, it means it will send a JSON. So if I run this, if you notice earlier, I ran it using node daemon. And you see the command node daemon app.js. This thing. Node daemon is again a package module. What it does is that it watches your code, and if anything changes, it will rerun the server. Simple as that. Now, this is command line package. What I did is I used this package in grunt. Now, grunt, if I type just grunt, I'm not telling which file to type. It will just read from grunt file and it will execute all the stuff. A lot of things it has done. It is showing you the task that it ran was linting. That is linting. What linting does is it just checks your code. So it says no problem with there in app, no problem with the server, no problem in grunt file. What it does is that it is doing power install. It is taking all the client-side packages and putting it in my final file. Then it is running injector. It is injecting all my templates into index.html. So now at the end it says it is listening to port 8080. Can you see at the bottom? Express server listening on port 8080. It is connected to database, and I have also created some dummy things, the basics, to see what actually I get as a response. So if I go here to the starter kit, you can see this is the stuff that I get. This is the page, and anything, if I create anything after this, any more routes, it will only be rendered on this page. There will be no changing of the URL. And this at the bottom, this is an Ember plugin that helps you in debugging your Ember client. These are the routes, Ember routes that it has created. Anything else?
Please show me how do you run these JavaScript applications on server side.
On server side, as I showed you, I did grunt. This time I did grunt. Grunt is a builder and an automator.
Grunt is mandatory.
It's not mandatory. The other.
How do you run on those? You have all your JavaScript components installed on the server.
I'm currently in the folder test.
Are you using terminal?
This is mix. Ming.
So,
I'm not using command prompt. I just use git bash it is.
what do you type here?
If I see my test, and in the test folder I have, this is my test folder, this is app.js. I need to run this. How do you run anything?
So for every application you have an app.js.
Yeah, no, it totally depends on you. I can rename it. If you want to rename, I'll rename to server.js. Okay, now if
do you have any prerequisite components for creating a web application? Yes.
see, only you can say 4 things are required. Node.js, you need to have Node.js. You need to have npm. You need to have power if you're going to use power. Otherwise, it's not mandatory. And since you're using Express, you need to have Express. The byte
Express is for what?
Express is for creating and handling the middleware. What Express people did is that
Yes, Express.js.
Express.js. So what they did is that you can create everything that I did here using Node.js, basic Node.js, HTTP and all. But what you have to write a lot of code. Why to write a lot of code when you already have an application framework created for you?
So how do you get started installing these things?
npm. If you go to Node site, you can download from Node.
What do you download? Zip file?
There are installers for Windows. You can download.
So you get the WinGW or you have to install on your own?
What? You can download. It's an installer file for Windows or Linux, Star or Dev, whatever you want.
This requires Linux environment.
No. This is
Why
my
are you using WinGW for npm?
for my terminal users because command line prompt. I don't like command prompt. So I'm just using it. It does not matter. I can run it from there as well. At home I use Linux, so therefore I installed. So you can install using this Node.js, and after that install npm. It is advisable to install npm because that is the manager that helps you in downloading other packages. Once you install npm, you can install anything. You can install Express. You can install whatever you want. And how to run? To answer your question is that this is the most simplest way of running. Just write Node.
If you do not have WinGW, you can do it from command line.
I'll do it from command line.
What is the benefit of Express? What is I think they have to write a lot of code. Right? Express, what it is from there?
Express is that what they have done is that they have extracted your basic function that you want to call in any web application and put it into their function, which simplifies your process. You can say like what DLL files are. DLL files are nothing that they are just linked directories and codes which are already created for you to use. So Express provides you a code. You can use their code to actually render it. If you want, you can do it the traditional way. You can create everything on it. But it is no sense why do everything when you have.
Just where things are defined like what are the code they have made actually.
They have documentation. They have very good documentation. I have server.js that I renamed. If I want to run.
So you have the node defined in the environment variable?
Yeah, it is defined in the
Can you show that?
Huh?
Can you show that path where it is?
I'm showing you the version. One.
No, show the path where it is installed. Node.js.
Okay, I will do. By default, this is.
Then look into the environment variable. The path.
You want to see the path, or you actually want to
I
see
want to
where
see
node?
where it is installed.
That is actually my folder.
You see where many program files we
Um, these are my packages that I created. These are applications that I did. It is probably
should
installed.
be inside program files or inside your user tab.
I am really not sure where I installed
So
it.
see the environment variable, the path it is referring to.
I totally defined that is why I can execute node command.
तो देख रहा था ये कैसे इंस्टॉल कैसे पैकेजेस भी
It will probably be here in my path. See, program files Node.js. Here it is. This is Node. This is the path. This is the basic application that runs. These are all the modules, global modules.
That is your V8 engine, right?
See what?
V8 engine is this one. Node.
Yeah, it is
JavaScript
bundled
engine.
inside itself.
So this is on the server side, right?
This is on my server side. When I deploy it, I will have to install on server. This is my local server. So let's say in production, when I take my application to production, I'll install Node.js over there.
So when you install that package, the installer that you get from, you have the express.js also?
No. The steps are: first I install Node.js, then I install npm. Okay. After I have installed npm, then I'll install express.js. Similar way that I did npm install express.
So on the client side, the only thing that you require is any of your client side JavaScript.
Yeah.
That is your choice.
Any of my framework. If I don't want to use a client side framework, I can use templating engines like J8.
You gave an example for an HTTP web application.
Yeah.
Can you create an application with TCP protocol?
I think you can do that, but I'm not sure. I have never done that.
Or is it that you can create only web applications?
I think you can do TCP. You can do. In Node.js, you can do. Because it is just a platform for creating all this stuff.
Because when you start your main JS file, you specify HTTP.
Yeah.
Requires the protocol
Yeah.
name. So I think you should have TCP also.
Yeah, TCP also. Yeah. By default, Node comes with packages that you can see on the documentation. So you have file reads, you have other stuff like path and all.
So in your entire presentation, you said that reusability. You stressed on reusability.
Yeah.
Getting familiarity or production ready for management. Very easily you can start developing applications.
Yeah.
These are the two main benefits you talked about.
Yes.
So we already have some robust web application framework, ASP.NET. What other benefits does it have?
See, the only thing is that you can say the downfall is that it is newer in the community.
That's fine.
Yeah.
What other benefits does it have?
See, the most important benefit is something that you do not need to learn so many other languages.
Learning perspective is different.
Okay.
Can you develop enterprise level applications?
Yes, already people are developing that. Even using Ember.js, they are developing that. There are already many big projects. Yahoo is shifting. PayPal has already shifted to Node.js and enterprise. PayPal is the biggest example of using Node.js as an enterprise level. So.
Okay, so see, at present I have a video conferencing project working. So I have client and server both being implemented in C++. The database that I use is MS Access. We have another project wherein the client is in C++, the server application is in Node.js. Okay. So now the way it is implemented in C++ is I do not have any assurance. It was already developed by someone and I just carried on. So I do not have an assurance about the scalability, how much request it can handle. Okay. So now there was other guy who is working on a similar project. He just looks into the client side. The server side is in Node.js. I asked him a question: how is scalability handled on the Node.js side? He doesn't know. Can you tell me if I send thousands of requests to an application handled, developed in Node.js? So, do you have a control over handling the request or the Node.js does it?
You can
You are
handle
creating
it.
a server.
Yeah.
Okay. So on the server application, I mean, it's your responsibility to handle all the incoming requests.
Yes.
Okay. Suppose assume that there are lakhs of HTTP requests being sent to your application. Can it handle that?
It can handle that.
Is it inbuilt or you have to handle it
No,
manually?
it is not inbuilt. By default, it provides you a simplest framework that you can work with. But you need to handle the request probably through load balance or
So
something.
you said asynchronous. Okay, that's fine. What is happening is internally a thread is created for it. It's running parallelly. Taking advantage of your core processes, multiple processes. So how do you handle this feature? I mean, lakhs of requests coming to your application.
You can use a queuer or a background worker. What it does is
Background worker is again one single thread.
one single thread. So what you can do is, see, I have not worked on such high scale projects, but what you can do is that you can have workers listening to requests, and then you can divide the, you can have, you will create more threads for
I'm
that.
not going into that detail, but I just want to confirm this has to be done manually by that person who is developing that application.
See, when you have to take the application to such high scales, you will have to manually.
But you just have the facility for callbacks. Can you create threads etc. there?
You need to have multiple instances running there. Node.js.
Multiple instances.
See, this is only one. Yeah, Node.js is one thread event listener. So I'll have probably other threads listening to my, you can say, allotting work.
When you run Node.js on the server side, it listens on one particular port.
Yeah, it listens on one particular.
You're talking about starting another instance running on separate port.
I will not start a whole application server. I'll just run a platform, Node.js platform, or another thread, so that I can.
How do you do that?
I haven't done that. Actually, I haven't.
Currently, what do you run in your
just simple one thread.
You specify some command there. You
Yeah.
just show that.
I just run this.
This is with JS file, right?
Yeah.
How is this?
From terminal, you want to see
How do you start your server application?
node.
Yes.
Giving the command node.
Okay.
I just gave a command node.
So you're talking about running the node twice.
See, what node is nothing like, you can say, if I run any program, let's say Java and program name, Ruby program name. Similarly, node.
Okay, node
and
and your application.
Yeah, my application. So it will read that application and run it, whatever it has done. It will execute the code, you can say. The server, what I do is that in that particular program, I create a server. Node will not end. Node will just keep on listening to that particular thread.
So, okay, when you run node and your application, I think a process is created for your application.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And okay, so that's fine. But how do you create threads? Do you have any such examples?
I do not have. I have never faced this.
Because in order to handle such number of requests,
yeah,
you have to create some threads. Because you said like when there is an incoming request, you have a function callback which accepts request and response.
Yes.
Okay. Whenever there is an incoming request, that is a function call. Okay. Now you just send the response.
Yes.
Okay. But what happens if you get multiple responses? That's the question.
So as I said, asynchronous and non-blocking, it will send it off to another thread.
But still, that is only a single thread.
Yeah, but it will send it in the background. That single thread will not stop listening to other requests. So at some level, it also reaches a threshold because computer power is limited. But consulting for enterprise level, I'm the wrong person for that.
Anyway, I just wanted to confirm that. Okay, that has to be done by the person who is developing that.
I actually have not run any performance related or haven't reviewed any articles on performance related, but I'll probably get back to you after.
The reason I'm asking is because it's quite becoming popular now.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And people are already developing in other technologies.
Yes.
It's very robust, proven, tested. But why should you migrate to this Node.js? Yes, reusability fine, and less development effort fine. But the real reason should be because this is a server application. Okay, this is not client side. So you deploy once, changes are done very frequently for server application. So there are other aspects which needs to be addressed: scalability, performance, uptime. There are many other things. So that's what I know.
Node.js, by the name itself, Node.js because it is working at different nodes.
No, nothing like that. The developer he just came up. The actual creator he just came up with the name.
That's the
Name.
what I was thinking of consider artificial intelligence. Like let's say like a machine or that's what I do. Yeah, consider the scalability is there. What would the name actually?
Performance scale.
Yeah.
I'll end the broadcast. I'm not sure.